All right, we ready?
I'll tell you when we're live. We're live.
All right, I'd like to call the Wednesday, May 19th Board of Education meeting back to order. I need a motion for, let's see, we're going to motion to go to regular session. All right, all in favor? Very good. All right, so please silence your electronic devices, and we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm assuming I'm the voice of it, huh?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have any additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing?
Yes, we do. Will be business consideration. 6.10 will be the agreement with the Times Union for the high school commencement ceremonies for June 26th. 6.11 will be the venue rental for the Jericho Drive-In for the senior night on June 9th. 6.12 will be the venue rental of the Jericho Movie Theater for the 8th grade moving up day on June 22nd. 6.13 is the construction J. McBain approval. 6.14 is the Colette mechanical approval for the construction. 6.15 is the, which one is this? The Gallo construction. 6.16 is the HVAC work. And 6.17 is the result of the budget vote last night.
All right. I need a motion to accept the additions. Ms. Hotelling, Mr. Ross, all in favor? All right. I need a motion to accept the minutes from the last board meeting, May 5th. Mr. Ross, Mr. Reveley, all in favor? Aye. All right. We are going to have a presentation tonight from Mr. Wolf, Advisory Services, regarding the transportation audit findings. And I see he joined.
And there you go. Mike Wolf's here. He's our internal auditor. He did give us a presentation to the Audit and Finance Committee a couple weeks ago. Some of the information was very informative. Teddy and Bill thought it would be a nice presentation. It'll be very brief to the Board of Education. So Mike, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. Congratulations on the budget. Sure, that was a happy thing to go through. So our internal auditor, as you know, I've been an internal auditor for many years. I've always presented to the audit committee. This is a good time to finally meet with the board members. This past year, we were originally going to be doing an audit of cafeteria cash, and with the COVID situation, we didn't have a lot of cash, so we switched over. And the decision was to do the fuel inventory and transportation. This is a function that has a lot of bells and whistles, has a lot of things that go, a lot of money involved in it. However, it's also some audit that can be done without having a lot of personal interaction for issues with COVID. Our main objectives when looking at the fuel inventory was the purchasing, making sure that you're purchasing at a decent rate and it's in compliance with state purchasing limits. We looked at the tracking and inventory of the deliveries, so that we looked at two different types of tracking on this audit, but this one we were looking at, okay, how are you monitoring what's in the tanks and keeping track of your deliveries and making sure the deliveries are correct. We also looked at the security and safeguarding the fuel. Of course, you don't want anybody pulling up with their own car and taking fuel or using fuel that shouldn't be. So we looked at the safeguarding there and then went through tracking your fuel usage. So yeah, before the original tracking was looking at what's in the tanks. This is looking at what goes into the tanks of the individual vehicles. And then finally, the receivables. Ravena has situation that many school districts have is they allow other municipalities to come in and buy fuel. So we looked at what is the process for collecting the money for when they're purchasing the fuel. So going through all those different objectives, the background real quick, as you know, there's fuel tanks down at the transportation facility. You have diesel, you have unleaded, and propane. All of them are secured, and we'll go over that shortly. But we went to look and see how are you purchasing the fuel for all those areas. We tested some of the fuel, tested about $62,000 worth of the fuel purchased in diesel. I think it was $22,000 in unleaded, and I think $6,000 in propane. We found in all of those cases, you were using the state vendor except for the propane, but even though you didn't use the state vendor, you were still getting at the state level prices or better. And we did find that with all of your fuel purchases are all in compliance with the purchasing process. Tracking inventory and deliveries. Here we did a number of tests. We looked to see, what is the method for keeping track of what's in the tanks. When the delivery truck comes, they're going to give you a ticket that says maybe 6,000 gallons of fuel. Did the system show that the inventory increased by 6,000? That was one of the tests we looked at. We also looked at just how is the tank level monitored? Does somebody check and make sure that it's monitored on a regular basis to make sure somebody doesn't come in one day and find that there is no fuel and you can't run a bus? We did find that the system is monitored appropriately. Tanks are checked every Monday morning to make sure there's fuel. If fuel is needed, they'll ask for delivery. One of the issues we did find with propane, though, is there is no measuring gauge. However, due to having a primary and a secondary tank, this kind of prevents any issue of running out of gas with the propane. We also looked at the delivery tickets to the system to see, did the tank, like I mentioned earlier, if you got 6,000 gallons, did the inventory show a $6,000 increase? We did find that we couldn't tie that together entirely, and that was, I believe, some sort of a calibration issue on the tank, but it's something that should be reviewed. And then finally, there is that process of checking the tank and calibrating the tank. And the old terminology was to stick the tank when they were in the ground, and that's just basically going in and actually doing a manual test of what does the manual stick say the tank has and what does this electronic system now say that your tank has. Overall, none of those issues there, I feel are anything of should keep you up at night. These are just minor issues for keeping track, and almost I would consider them administrative functions. And while I'm at that, let me just step back real quick. Over the entire audit, let me just get the issue of itself with transportation fuel inventory. I'm hitting on a lot of things here, and there's a lot of moving parts. But I can say that a lot of the issues I'm bringing up here are things I would find at many of my schools. So I don't want you to feel like these are anomalies that are just here at Ravena. At the end of the day, and I'm sure the board members would want to make sure that the students are getting to the school and getting home from school safe in a timely manner and in a safe manner is the primary thing there. Whether somebody actually measured a tank in the fuel tank and measured those things is definitely secondary. And that's usually what happens with this area that we're auditing is that, it's after all the students are done, all the field trips are taken care of, all of the other issues, the inspections of the buses, the inspections of the driver's records, all of those things go into place. Then fuel starts getting looked at. So I know I'm going to hit on a lot of stuff, but keeping it in perspective, this is probably one of the lesser areas that you deal with in transportation. Tracking the security and safeguarding access to the fuel. With that, we look to see, can somebody come in and get the fuel? Can someone access it that shouldn't? There's your physical security, which are your cameras that are around the facility. And for the most part, they did cover the majority of the areas with the fuel tanks. Didn't see any major issues there. However, next capital project or something, maybe you could add a few cameras here or there. The propane tanks are not under camera review. But again, most of the time, if somebody were to drive into that area, they'd have to go through an area that has cameras. The other form of security is the electronic security. That's through the electronic system in the fuel pump system, the software system. Basically, what happens there is there are keys that are programmed that are tied to either users or tied to vehicles or tied to both. The system works in a way that if a key that's assigned to a bus that has diesel fuel, somebody came up and tried to put unleaded in it, the key will not turn the pump on. It's one of the protections that's in the system. Also, each of the drivers have a PIN number that they have to enter in. And then they also, for tracking purposes, have to enter in the bus mileage. So all of those things together make it pretty restrictive that you're at least being able to track who took the fuel, when they took it, what vehicle it went into. Now, some of the things we looked at was who has authorized keys. We took the listing, and we did find a number of IDs, so user IDs of people that are no longer employed or other various things. There's 3 keys that go to the fire company I mentioned earlier. But we found 13 users that no longer are currently with the district or currently working in the transportation department with a need to have access to the fuel. So they basically showed that there isn't a timely review of the employee role versus the roles of who has access to the fuel. Now, seeing that there are some unauthorized keys out there, we went and did a test to look back to when was the last time that person was employed here, or last time the employee was working in the transportation facility, and we did not find any unauthorized usage. So even though the keys were there, they weren't used, which is a good thing. Then we also looked to see the logs of to review the user logs of the system for anomalies for, if someone's getting fuel on a Saturday or Sunday, if someone's getting the fuel prior to 5 a.m. or maybe after 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. or on a snow day, we were looking to see what was the cause of somebody getting fuel on those days, which would be considered anomalies. We did find, I think, 18 occasions, and we traced all of them back. We either traced them to an event, a vehicle, it's called a DVIR form that's filled out every time the buses leave the grounds. We also tested, traced those 18 instances to people's timesheets to see if they were legitimately working. All 18 were found to be valid, authorized reasons, whether it was a field trip. There was, I think, 3 of them that was right after there was a snow day. So it was the buildings and grounds personnel coming in and using fuel for handling the snow removal. So overall, on the fraud side of things or unauthorized access, we didn't find any issues. There are master keys that are available. That does have the potential for people to come in and take fuel. Some of those fuels are needed, and because they go to vehicles, numerous vehicles like the fleet of lawnmowers you have, the bucket loaders, if they have to have a gas can just to go fill up the snowblower or something like that, the master key is used and it's not tied to a vehicle. However, that also is a way to get fuel out of the tanks. It's tied to the person who has to still use the key and put their PIN number in, but the master key does have a little bit of unrecorded usage. That's just a risk that comes with those keys. But we had the recommendations we have there is the software that's being used is somewhat out of date. We recommend having some updated systems, having some sort of a mechanism in place to make sure only valid employees or users are listed on the fuel master system. And that's usually making sure that through payroll, when there's employees are onboarded or offboarded, that transportation gets looped into an email of those. Periodically, we did that test of checking nights and weekends and holidays. However, nobody checks it at the transportation department or buildings and grounds department. We recommend that somebody just periodically takes a look, every month, every 2 months, did we have any anomalies? And then also figure out maybe a possible way to strengthen the master key process, whether it's a manual log or something like that. So that was then with the security. And then we went to tracking of usage. And with this, we're looking at how, there's a lot of data that is collected by this fuel system. Since the drivers have to put in the mileage for each of the bus, and the system keeps track of the amount of fuel that's used. There's a lot of useful data in there just to see how well the vehicles are efficiently running. It also can tell you are some of the drivers maybe idling the bus a lot, because it would show a change in the miles per gallon. But one of the biggest thing we found as issue with this is that there were times when the system was put into the manual operation system, and I believe this was because of some technology issues. But when it was put in data manual or manual operation, there was no readings being done. So there was a good portion of the audit, 2 or 3 weeks here and there at the longest, where we couldn't actually read the data, so we couldn't do an analysis. And during those periods of times, we wouldn't be able to tell you if there was unauthorized access. Most of that period of time for unauthorized access was during the summer, or it was after COVID began, so there wasn't as much usage during that period of time. However, the 2 to 3 week range was October to December of 2020, so that did represent a larger portion of usage. But with the data, we went to go validate what is the data in the system. We traced it back to the DVIRs, like I mentioned, to see if it's agreeing to what they're officially putting on their documents. And for the most part, we didn't find any issues there that were material. We also looked to see, are there the ability to measure the mileage per gallon and see how well the buses are running. We were able to see some trends there and did note that most of the buses are running with what would be considered normal. And then we also looked at the usage from the fuel, from the master keys, and didn't find any major problems there. Again, how you actually can trace it, though, that's something that we weren't able to attest to, because there is no log when somebody uses a master key. And then finally, the last area that we didn't do the test because of the missing data, we wouldn't be able to do it. But there's a final reconciliation that we look at, and that's tying those two tracking mechanisms together. In the objective number 2 was to look at what is the fuel in the tank and how well is that changing, or what is the amount that's changing. And then the second tracking is how much fuel is going into the buses and the other vehicles. The difference in both systems should be able to agree, you should be able to reconcile them. That's not a process that's being done. We're recommending that is done just to see, okay, if we put 5,000 gallons in the buses over the course of a month, hopefully the main holding tank decreased by 5,000. If not, let's start looking at what happened. Finally, there's the receivables. You have a local volunteer fire department that you have an intermunicipal agreement with. That is very common to have between school districts and local municipalities. When we looked at the issue, or looked at the process, the contracts, we weren't able to find a current contract. I know they found it towards the end of the audit, but it was still, I think, an older contract. The process for billing the fire company we found was being done at the transportation department. That's really something that we're recommending be run through the business office. So this way they know that money should be coming in from the business or from the fire department. And then we also found that the original rates that were in the contract were much less than the amount that you were charging or that you were paying when you bought the glass. For instance, the flat rate was $1.67 a gallon that you were that the fire company was paying you guys for. The average price you guys bought the gas for was at $2.18 a gallon. It wasn't a large amount of money, but the district was losing money on those transactions. We also, and the other thing too with that is going back to that period of time when the system was in that manual mode where we couldn't track usage. During that period of time, we weren't able to reconcile back to the fire department's billing system. But overall, those are the areas that I think, we already went over them with the audit committee and Joanne and staff from transportation and buildings and grounds. And I think I know some of the items have already been taken care of. I think the tank's already been recalibrated and different sensors have been turned on. So I know corrective action is already in the works. Everyone was very, very helpful and cooperative during the audit, and it was a pleasure, as always, working with everybody down there. Any questions or anything?
I don't have any questions, but I think, Joanne, I would probably say that we would want to definitely thank like Jason and Bill, because Jason was in our audit meeting and he's done a lot to fix a lot of these issues already and made a lot of improvements since I think he's been in his position. So I definitely would think we'd want to give kudos to him. I'm not sure who else within the district, but definitely seems like we have a handle on all of these issues moving forward for sure.
Yep, I agree, Mr. Reveley, and Jason has done an outstanding job. And I think we felt it was important from the committee perspective and myself that we shared the report, and it wasn't all glowing. We know that, but we certainly, we have taken steps to already correct it. We'll be funny, odd as it sounds. There's an agreement in place that has existed since 2009 with the volunteer fire company. Mind you, it's not a lot of money that they don't have a high volume, but it had never been updated. So we're in the process of doing that. You're going to see that at the board level. You have to accept that through a resolution. We're working on that, and we will be taking charge of that. We have the right people in place. Jason's working on getting the upgrades, and I don't have to give them a shout out. Teddy, you just did, so thank you very much. They do good work, and we're in the right direction, I think, is what we found to be most important to share.
Yeah, and I definitely would second that, because Jason was basically the only person I dealt with throughout this entire audit, and he had a lot of things going on down there. In addition to having to have me interrupt his days to show me this and that with the tanks and go over reports, he was extremely helpful. And basically, anytime I called, he was always ready to go. And what do you need? And he was always there to help.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Do we have any hearings and petitions for agenda items? We don't. All right. So we'll move to business considerations. I need a motion for one or all the business considerations.
I'll make a motion for 6-1 through 6-17.
All right, need a second?
Aye.
Ms. Burns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd just like to call out 6-3. We have a donation for a folding music stand from Wanda Losi. I'd like to thank her for that. That was very nice. All right, moving on to personnel considerations. I need a motion for one or all the personnel considerations.
I'll make a motion for 7-1 through 7-3.
Need a second? Ms. Shackleton, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Information items. We have Edna Graham, who will be a student teacher. She's coming from SUNY Albany. Be working with Kathleen Dervaj. And special reports. Mr. Reveley, you have anything? No? I just want to make a comment regarding the grounds. I know we're using all the grounds right now. They look fantastic. So we have baseball, softball, soccer, all sorts of stuff going on. The tennis courts are being used. So it's really nice to see the district live again, and all the fields look nice and healthy. The mounds look great. So it's really nice to see that. So
I agree, Jason. They put a lot of work in the last week, a couple weeks. the grounds looked really good outside last night, coming out of the budget vote and everything. It looked good. So, and the budget vote was very well marked, I guess, sign wise and everything else. So I think we had a very good setup with that as well.
Yep. Yeah, I wanted to recognize that, as well as the COVID vaccines. That is set up very well as well. I went this past weekend for my daughter's second. So, and that was set up really nice. It was very, very fluid going in, going out. So it's really good.
Brian, actually, that's a good topic. Do you know where we're at for people signed up to get the vaccine for this Saturday?
I spoke with a pharmacist today. We have 100 students signed up, and he is willing to keep the application open until Friday. And I did email the families last night to let them know we are now including not just students 12 and older, but also their family members and even other community members who are still in need of receiving the vaccine. So maybe by Friday, we'll see even a few more numbers in there.
Good. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for everybody who came out to vote. Great job. Congratulations to our board members.
Yep. Yeah, it was a very low turnout, but it's always good when it passes. So thank you, everybody. All right, Dr. Bailey, hand it off to you.
Thanks for acknowledging the work that our folks have done around the grounds. I was in Peterby today, and upstairs, and our teachers in that back wing have been putting decorations up for the players to see while they're playing or out in the field. So Go RCS and all kinds of things like that, which is awesome because the little kids get to see the big kids playing. But the second thing that the teachers were saying to me is, we've watched that field transform. It's amazing. It's a miracle. And of course, the other thing that was fascinating them today is Jason and one of the grounds people were out there rolling 5,000 gallon container down the side of the field, and they thought that looked very amusing because they're working on building more continuous irrigation there at that field, and they had dropped off the big green tank like the ones at the high school. So I can't say enough. And the same thing outside the boat, just the grounds look great. We still have some work to do around signage. We had some folks coming in from 9W who still felt as though they couldn't find the back. And people who've been coming for decades are so pre-programmed to go to the old gym and the old entrance. So we're going to do some more improvements for signage for next year. We figured a sign every 150 to 100 feet or so that just there was no way they could get lost. Even if it was a handful of people complaining, we know that probably more like 40 or 50 were confused, and we want to make sure that they know where to go. We don't want voters showing up angry. That's a good message, and it's good customer service. Thanks for mentioning the vaccination clinic. It's from 10 to 1 this Saturday, and then 3 weeks from now on June 12th, excuse me. And everybody 12 years of age and older is eligible. And this one's a little unique in that we will allow parents to escort their children in because of the age of some of the kiddos who will be getting the shots. So it's a little bit different. We're going to try and help them with their IDs, either for students that we know will be getting the vaccine, or if they're the right age, we may give them a printout of their school tool page that'll help identify them when they walk in and really streamline the process. But we're excited about that. And I'm also grateful to the staff who volunteer, even though some of them are being paid chaperone pay and their nurses are being paid an hourly rate. Look at the weather outside. People have a lot of things to do on May and a June weekend right now. So thank you for my staff who have agreed to help out with these clinics. You've seen a lot going on in the news about masks in New York State, especially for folks who have already been vaccinated. I shared an email with staff last night that let them know absolutely the Department of Health and the CDC have put a lot of information out there about freedom for people who have vaccinations. That does not apply to schools. At this time, schools are still held to a different standard, and we've formulated strategies that have worked for us since we came back in September. We're going to follow them for the next 6 weeks. It's not that long. We'll follow them for the next 6 weeks, and we'll keep our students and staff safe. And then in July, we will hopefully get some new guidance from New York State. And I'm going to send something home to families too, because it is so confusing to hear the news, which says liberation, everyone's free, and don't worry about masks anymore. And of course, they don't even say the word school. So people, for all the right reasons, are confused. We are still a mask-on facility. We still do attestations. So hopefully people will continue to support that to keep everyone safe. That's about it. But I did remember one thing that actually just came up while we opened the meeting, that I wanted to ask the board's indulgence to please go back into executive session to discuss a matter around litigation. So if we could do that, I'd be appreciative. Really quickly at the end. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Mr. Engelhardt.
So the high school gym has been busy in usage over the last couple of weeks. Not only have we had the vaccine clinics and then our vote, but our pre-kindergarten and kindergarten friends have been holding their screening there. We weren't able to do screening in our building, so we did that kindergarten screening last week, and then pre-K started their screening this week, and it's working out great. It's great to have that. So thank you to all of those teachers. If you don't know, students go from station to station. They have not only academic screening, but our speech teachers do a screening. Our nurses talk to parents about proper paperwork, and even our OTPT does screening as well. Miss Aldridge and Mr. Graham, thank you for them, because they helped with flow of traffic around that. And in case you were wondering, this is so sad, today was A day at the elementary level, which means it's the alphabet countdown. So tomorrow is B day, and then C day, and then E. So we have, 25 days left of school. Right, we need some more time. And yet we don't need more time. So it's both of those things. If we go to our website, so let me just quickly share, if you don't mind. This is kind of my shtick lately. You'll see our news with some great stories. I just wanted to show another way to get to our news. Right at the bottom, you see where it says See All News, and it's kind of just a different layout, which is great to look at this way. So starting right at the top, a huge congratulations to Jared Lamson, who was selected as Section 2 Scholar Athlete for boys swimming and diving. So congratulations to him. This is huge for us, and I want to just really appreciate Ms. Semenak, all of the staff, our students, our families who have gotten us this recognition as the best buddies. Congratulations to us as the chapter named best in New York State. So for all of their hard work in this, we just want to take the time to appreciate that. They do a lot of great things for our community. So thank you so much to them.
That's fantastic, by the way. That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
They do a great job. So yeah, we look forward to them coming, even in our COVID season, they were able to do some really awesome stuff. So I think that's one of they got a Perseverance Award for that. Recognition to Catherine Pignota. She got honorable mention for the 2021 Congressional Art Competition. So congratulations to her. And I wanted to go back and let's see. I think, is this it right here, Dr. Bailey? We want to try to celebrate a June calendar. I'll at least show folks where to access the June calendar.
Yep, right where it says RCS schedules.
Right here?
Yep. Very last thing on the list. This was also emailed and posted as a news story last week for families. It says end of year schedule, but I did share this in a couple different ways. Yeah, can you open that up, Fred?
Yep.
So you got the big news there. You've got senior night at the Jericho on the 9th, the prom on the 5th of June. We will have a contingent recess day on the 28th of May. That's important to know too. And you see in the very last week, 8th grade moving up, 5th grade moving up, and graduation. Board members are invited to attend graduation. You will receive an invitation. We are in a huge facility. And if you want to join us, I believe there'll be room on the stage for you to sit with us, spaced 6 feet or more. Yep.
Yay. And then lastly for me, I know we're coming up to the CNI notes that are on here, so I wanted to just quickly share that we did talk about, I think Mr. Revely brought it up several weeks ago regarding AP and dual enrollment courses. So we did have a great conversation at CNI around that. Our first kind of aha was that we have a lot of kids who participate, which is great. But I think all of the teachers and all of the staff and our board members were saying, okay, but how can we even increase that more? So our conversation went quickly to how do we increase those numbers? And if you go on that hyperlink there, it'll take you to this document, which will show you those numbers. So feel free to look at them. And we're really excited. You know, I've shared this a couple of times that this leads to one of our accountability measures, which is the CCCR, the Civic Career and College Readiness Index. So any time a student graduates with a UHS or an AP type of credit, we get additional points, I guess is the best way to say it, on our accountability. And I don't know if Ms. Shackleton or Ms. Hotelling want to mention anything about that as well. No, I'm done then.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Moran.
There's always a lot of that goes on at the end of the school year. So it's a little bit crazier this year because we're still trying to manage. We have a transfer, we have Sue Harrison that's new to payroll. We have Helena who's new. So we're doing a lot of hands-on stuff with people. We're trying to open the new year, close out the old year, get the new salaries up for the July 1. And we have to get everything ready for all the 10-month staff that comes back in September. All of those things take such a large amount of time, but we're getting through it. I'm thrilled to say that it's always nice to learn something new. So the business office staff, the 2 of them, right now 3 of them, and if I count 2, we have 4. Everybody's learning something new. So I've got to give everybody a lot of credit. We're killing it. There's just a lot to do. Again, we're doing the final year end payroll. There's a balloon check. Everybody knows that. There's some work that we do to make sure that that's not a problem. We have to have everything set to turn over the first pay in July. We had an audit and finance committee meeting the past week. We get ready for our external audit. There's still pieces of the internal audit that are going on. Our external audit, the pre-audit work will begin in mid-June. They'll come in, get that work compiled, then they'll spend a week with us. Lately, it's been 3.5 days, where it used to be 10 days. They'll be in at the end of August to do that. We're working with the village. We're helping them price out a fob system for this building that we could work together through an agreement, an arrangement with them. They purchase the information or the hardware. We'd maintain it for them. And there just seems to be so much. Fred and I just talked about, as Dr. Bailey and I, the CARES Act, the ESSER, the GEAR, all those things. Fred and I decided that we're going to give you a comprehensive overview of that in June, of all the things we know about all of those funds. We talked about them, the 2 million, the 600,000, and identify those and go over that in a relatively comprehensive but not overbearing report the next time we meet. So all of the board members have an idea of what's out there. What are the funds we're getting? What hoops do we have to jump through? How do we have to plan for it? What are the regulations? And some of it, oddly enough, they haven't even offered us the regulations at this point. So we're not behind the 8 ball. I want to let you know that. We ask there's a group of business officials that we're all in, we send group text messages, group emails, and I'll be asking a question and everybody else has the same concerns that we do. The guidance is forthcoming. It's slowly getting around there. So we'll update the Board of Education on the June 2nd meeting on what there is, what we know right now about the reporting requirements, because that is a cumbersome process right now. It's between reporting, planning, applying for, and maintaining. So we'll give everybody an up-to-date, because I think that's something that we all need to review in public. And that's it. I'm thrilled, tickled pink as always when a budget is approved. The comments were made about the grounds. We're trying to get irrigation set up at Peter B. so we don't have another problem there. But how nice it was when I had some people that have been here now 6 years came up to me during the vote yesterday to comment and said the same things that you all said about the grounds and how nice it looks. It really does. I got to give a shout out to the O&M group, everybody that works hard. The hard work pays off. It looks nice. So thank you for your continued support. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. So new business, anybody have anything?
I got a question. With graduation being at the Times Union Center, we still have to follow all these same guidelines, or we're going to have to still require vaccination cards and negative tests and all the 6 feet, or has anything changed with that? I mean, more stuff can change in the next month, who knows? But I guess where are we at that with graduation and being that we're having it at the Times Union Center?
Because we're exceeding the limit for indoor gatherings, we will, at this juncture, be required for everyone who attends to demonstrate proof of vaccination 14 days or more prior to the event, proof of a negative test, which could be a lab test within 72 hours of the event, or a rapid test within 6 hours of the event, or they have to show proof of having had COVID and recovering within the last 90 days. We sent a letter to families that detailed those 3 things, and we promised some more guidance around it. I think the rapid test is the one that's most confusing for folks because people are asking something like, can I buy one at CVS and take the test? We're going to get better information, but our presumption will be that, and the TU Center will be handling all of the security and entry around this for us, is that we would have to show valid proof of a rapid test. So that means from a doctor's office, a CVS pharmacy, a printout in what's called the eClairs system, which is the system by which all of us, every time we either get a vaccination or we're COVID positive or we get tested, is recorded. Big monstrous database for the Department of Health. We believe that some type of, what's that passport thing called, Joanne?
Excelsior.
The Excelsior Pass, yes.
So we believe the Excelsior Pass, a printed copy, like I have my card, I've done the Excelsior Pass, or a printed version from a provider that actually entered into some database. Bringing the one from CVS will probably be unacceptable. That all being said, we're going to make the Times Union Center tell us exactly what they want when people walk up. We don't want anyone to be turned away. We don't want there to be any confusion. So we're going to be extremely obvious about what these landmarks may be. And Teddy, as you alluded to, ideally, by the time we're rolling in there on June 26th, we won't have to worry about any of it. It's a possibility. So let's hold faith.
Here's another question I have. What about live streaming this?
It will be live streamed.
Okay.
Yep. And as I mentioned before, we already have some plans and ideas about how to make sure that our students, our graduates, can perhaps come on site at the high school on the day of the event and get their tests. So at least, because, it'd be a tragedy if grandma got turned away. It'd be unconscionable if one of our graduates was turned away. So we want to make sure that at the very least they have everything they need in their hand. We'll have people sign up if they need it, and we'll be able to process that.
I have something along those same lines, Brian. You may have just answered it, but there's a question about, what happens if families have a bunch of people who want to come and they have to pay for their test. That could be cost prohibitive to some families. The test that we would give, I guess, would be free, but if they have to go somewhere else and pay, is there any guidance around that, or?
Great question, Yvonne. Not yet.
Okay.
Great question. I will let you know the tests that we own can only be administered on our students. So that would preclude us from doing anything larger. And I know that wasn't your question, but Great point. People who have had to go to like the First Stop Medical and pay for the lab test, it can be a significant investment. So that's a great idea. We're going to find some resources for people so they can ideally get access to it at free or no fee. Free or reduced fee.
Brian,
I really hope it's all lifted. I'm sorry, Tina. I hope it's all lifted because this is logistically so complex. Think of how slow it was to get a test back when we had our most cases. We're going to have tens of thousands of families wanting to go to graduation, and all of them are going to be being tested at the same time. They've got to make an accommodation for us. Go ahead, Tina. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I wanted you to wrap up because this was really important. So if there was other questions about graduation, I'll hold on a second. No, okay. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up in new business, we informally had a conversation yesterday, kind of piggybacking on CNI, but probably this forum is another venue to kind of start this conversation about what the district's planning for re-engaging students that have been remote this year as we lead into the fall. And I know there's 100 unknowns about whether or not hybrid will be allowed, whether there'll be a requirement, whether there'll be none, but just starting that ball rolling of how we can envision it in the best case scenario, and then where we would need to pivot as we get more information clarified.
I'm going to answer part of it and then hand it over to Fred. Right in line with your question is we've been asked quite a few times, are we going to be required to offer a remote version of instruction? We don't know that yet, but I have to think that they're going to make us do something. Not every child and not every adult is going to be vaccinated. And I think that they're going to ask us to make some accommodation, or even worse, they might tell us, it's your choice to make an accommodation, and then they'll put the pressure on us to do it. Certainly, that'd be one tool in our toolbox. But what we've discovered, obviously, is remote instruction has worked fabulously for some children, and it has been a calamity for others. So we have a lot to do. Fred, all you, Fred. Answer all those questions, Fred.
Gosh. I think, though assessment sometimes comes with a dirty connotation, I think we have to figure out a way to hit the ground running in September around social emotional health support. So we had mentioned, and I know I had mentioned yesterday, but for this conversation, the idea of coming back to the why around positive behavior interventions and support, and making sure that schools are ready to teach kids again what school looks like, routines, procedures. So a lot of our students haven't been in a typical classroom setting. So, and then there's other things like mental health and those type of things that we need to consider as well. So it's the social emotional health piece of that we need to figure out some sort of assessment for, whether it's something like a closed gap, or we use FastBridge that has some sort of screener. I think what we would have to do with that, again, there's all these layers, is then educate families on why, because we did have quite a few families who decided not to participate in that. But we would want to have those conversations. And the second thing, and then is academic as well. We're going to try our best to get as much assessment done. There's the assessments going on right now. Of course, there'll be assessments going on right until the end of the school year. So we want to be able to look at that data, but then also, are there things, and again, not to overly assess our kids, but are there probes that we can do in the beginning of the school year? And I had mentioned this in our kind of informal conversation too, just because a student passes doesn't mean they come to you with the foundational skills necessary to then hit the ground running for that course. So teachers are going to have to, and they do this well already. Many of our teachers do this, is what are you missing and how do I pivot instruction in order to fill those gaps? So we have a lot of curriculum writing going on over the summer. In addition to that, we have some summer programming that we're working on right now too. More information to come out on that. Adventures in Reading is going to look a little bit different. We're going to have a middle school and high school program as well that'll help with initial instruction and credit recovery. So we're kind of comprehensively trying to do as much as we can for that transition, hoping that we don't have kids who fall through the cracks. It doesn't answer all your questions, probably raises more questions.
So just to follow up with that just a little bit, when do you think you'll start to try to lay the groundwork for September? You know, knowing state ed and knowing the state in general, it's very last minute and it's very partitioned as to what information you get and the usability of it a lot of times, right? So you have to kind of figure it out yourself. So when do you start doing that? Is that, you know, the first week of July, you start to kind of sit down and get together with some teams, or?
We're honestly starting to do, Jason, that's a great question. We're honestly starting to do that now. And we kind of have done this even last year. So 3 feet is kind of the magic number right now. What we're going to do is a mock classroom of what 3 feet looks like. Now that may change. We hope it will change. But for now, we have to plan with what we have. So we have 3 feet. We're going to kind of do a mock classroom on what 3 feet looks like. If we have to do a remote option, I've been in conversations with Greenville, with Cooksaki, Cap Region BOCES. What does a consortium look like? So if we don't have enough kids to do, let's say the mandate does come down, we have to do this. Is there a way that we can kind of share students and staff in order to make that a possibility? So we are having those conversations now because I think all of us like to plan. We're, you know, a bit OCD with that, and it's really challenging to not know all the answers and know that it'll probably change by September 1st. But we got to plan with what we got right now.
So we can certainly expect the rules to be very, very fluid, right? But you'll also have the expectations that most likely we would be back at full days, right? So that would be hopefully one of the things. And then a lot of the folks that were staying, you know, complete remote instruction, some of them may have been that way since March of last year, right? So it's been a very, very long period of time. You know, what plans do you have to try to figure out how you can bring them back into the fold, get them confident, get them kind of reacclimated to the normal day-to-day activities that they had prior to COVID, right? Those are things that, you know, we need to kind of figure out ourselves. I don't think there's going to be any path for that solution.
Agreed.
Right. And to piggyback on that, the idea that even if we are required to have the option, how do we incentivize and make it more desirable to be in person here and not opt to do it remotely? How do we bring those people back in and feel like this is the best place to be versus at home?
Good point.
And one other piece, some of the things that we've done, we've been so creative. Some of the things that we've done actually have been, you know, positive, right? They've worked well. They, you know, maybe the structure of classes and stuff like that, that longer period of time, those types of things. Maybe some of those things worked good. And those are things that we should look at maintaining because they were helpful and they did work well. And they gave teachers, you know, a little bit more time. You know, in other cases, they may have said, no, things were terrible and they didn't work. But I think there probably are some positives out there.
There definitely is. Yeah, I know that not to go into great detail, but you're exactly right. People have been looking at the silver linings of this, seeing what the strengths are with some of like even the technologies and being able to do things like what we're doing now. It's changed some things, you know, and though we want to go back to normal, we know that there's some things that worked really well. And how do we include that as part of our instruction? It's really good. I love the idea of incentivizing in person. So I'm going to think on that, Tina. Good one.
Anything else, new business?
I don't know if it's new business, but I know, Brian, you mentioned you want to talk about us coming back together. I don't know if you want to do that now or when you
Yeah,
want to do that. But
It's new old business. So I mentioned that the governor's executive orders around remote meetings, I think, have been extended through June 16th. We've talked a few times over the last 6 months about when's the right time for us to re-enter. Some of the questions that you had about what procedures would look like if we went back into a large group setting, we would have to meet in the auditorium because it has sufficient space for people to distance. So if we had any type of crowd, they'd have room to do that. We would have to set a maximum capacity in that room at 6 feet. I can tell you that we've never had a board meeting where we've surpassed, what would fit in that room. So we'd be okay if we went in there. Capacity is not going to be an issue. The board would be up on the stage, seated distanced as we have been before. And we'd still stream the meetings. Anybody who attended the meetings would need to complete an attestation upon entry to the building, just like any visitors do now. And they'd be able to obviously wear masks and enter. So knowing that it's something that's achievable, what are your thoughts about coming back June 2nd? We'd have 2 meetings left before we hit July.
I'm for it because my kids drive me nuts here.
I'm in favor.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
I like it this way. If you guys remember meeting in the auditorium in a big line, it's not like sitting around a table. I remember that being a nuisance. I like being home.
Yeah, if we can do it in person, but still be able to see and communicate with each other. But I agree, when we're in the auditorium, it's nearly impossible to hear. And if you can't make eye contact, you miss a lot of what's going on around you.
Yeah, if we could change maybe that layout a little bit, I think that may help. So it seemed like a very, very long line. So both ends of the table were a country mile apart.
I think what would help is something that we did like at the recent budget vote yesterday. We chose not to use 6 or 8 foot tables. We used classroom tables. It's a little less dignified. It doesn't feel as nice, but you can get 6 feet really easily. The issue is we were using tables that were already 5 feet long. So that's a lot more than 6 feet. We'll experiment and we'll try to find a dignified compromise for that. And I wanted to point out, Kristen has been incentivized to go back to in-person because of her children.
It's tough sometimes. So we, with everything going on, and I know schools, we still wear a mask and stuff. It's still 6 feet though, with vaccinated people. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought they moved it to 3 feet.
It's 3 feet. 3 feet in elementary schools, and it's still 6 feet in middle school and high school because we are still, believe it or not, considered a high transference area. As long as we are, we can't move within 6 feet of in Albany County right now, even though we're 20 people a day.
We can move our meeting to the elementary school. We can get within 3 feet, do it in the cafeteria. If the house.
I was wondering, I was like, if we go there and we sit at desks, then it's perfect, right?
Some of us want to be 3 and some want to be 12. It'll be an interesting setup, right?
If you want, we can have it outside. I don't care.
I am a little concerned about the heat, but one of the things I think what Tina and someone else mentioned, that's very difficult to hear. If we turned off the air conditioner and use an alternative means, maybe we'll do something different with the amplification. It's a little hard to amplify with the microphones in the same space, but perhaps we can do something that would help with that. We'll experiment a little bit and see what we can do.
All right, we kind of transitioned into old business. Anything in old business that we want to discuss? So I did want to mention the communication on the website. Mr. Engelhardt always shows it in his time allotment. One of the things that I think we have to, do a good job. There's two things. We have to the new information and the critical information that's coming out during the week and stuff like that. I think that needs to be in that gold bar, right? So I think we need to move that up into that gold bar so that way when we're talking about it, we're sending out letters to families, when we're doing robocalls and stuff like that. I think it has to be very easy to find. If somebody was to click on that website, it's right there in front. You don't have to go hunting and pecking to find it. You can find it later on, but there's not a tech savvy community out there, right? So I think we need to be a little bit more vigilant with being easier to find those things. And the other thing is we talked about our communications person and, looking at that and doing something different with that. Where are we at with that?
With the approval of the budget, it would allow us to post the position now and
Okay.
make that transition.
Okay. So we're good to go now to start thinking forward of something different with that.
Yes.
Okay. Great. So who's managing it right now? Is it still through BOCES?
Correct.
Okay. So if we wanted to do those moves, like you were just talking about, like the calendar, right? So the end of the year calendar, throwing that up in that gold bar, we'd have to reach out to BOCES and ask them to do that for us?
No, it's a BOCES person that works in district with us almost full time.
Okay.
So same principle. It would just be someone that we have, and they'd be here 5 days a week.
Okay. Anything else in old business? No? All right. So committee reports, we have the C&I committee meeting. We've discussed that a little bit. So that's the minutes to follow, as well as the audit finance committee. The minutes are attached. So the information that you shared, Mr. Engelhardt, is that going to be sent out? So you showed kind of the UHS and AP stats.
Yes. Is that, Sue, was that, or Joanne, do you know if that was already sent out, or is that to follow?
It was in the packet today with the additions.
It was in today's? Okay, thank you, Sue.
And what I did is, instead of hyperlinking, I did also print out those class sizes so that you could see them in front of you.
Okay. We have no policy adoptions. Do we have any hearings and petitions? No. All right. Upcoming activities, June 2nd, we have our Board of Education meeting, which it sounds like we will be in person in the high school auditorium. We do need to go back into executive session for a quick discussion regarding personnel matters.
Legal matters.
Legal matters. All right, but we won't be making any decisions after that. So we're going to be adjourning right after that. So do we make our motion now, or do you just make our motion after exec?
Hold on, Teddy's muted.
Teddy was telling me what we're supposed
Motion to go to exec.
Motion to go into exec.
Yeah. Kristen seconds it.
All right, Ms. O'Time, Mr. Revely, all in favor? Aye. All right, going back to exec. Let us know when we're going to.
Yeah, after exec, then we exit out of the meeting.
Okay.